My name is Bill, and 6NBN. Been a ham for 40 years. I'm a computer tech by profession. I still have a business where I do a little bit of mobile tech support. And I enjoy figuring things out, just like you guys do. And I first heard of this APRS thing, I don't know, 20 years ago or so. And I like working public service events. And this seemed like a really useful thing to be able to do. So Net Control doesn't have to keep asking people, where are you? So I learned how to do telemetry. And my style is buy something and mess with it. Don't read the manuals.
Things come with
Play with it
manuals.
first, small steps, start cheap. Well, that didn't work because I spent
Not
much.
this hobby.
But I bought a couple of gadgets from a guy at bionics.com because he programs them up for you. You just plug them in and put them to work. And you guys are going to get a copy of this deck, so don't worry about taking notes. I don't want to do this to you. If I leave you like a deer in the headlights, then I failed. What I hope to leave with you is an interest in the topic and the desire to learn more. And the best way to learn is to hook up a beacon and start driving around. So, getting into it, automatic packet or position, it's used both ways, reporting system. Invented by a guy who has passed on. Let's stop here. What I like telling people is what we're going to hear and what you're not going to hear. So you have some idea of what's going to be covered. A little bit about what APRS is, some basics, mostly focused on our area, why it's useful, some examples of equipment, some ways people use it. Those last two things look exactly the same, and how to learn more. I'm not going to cover how GPS works. You can look that up yourselves. It's very fascinating, actually. We might touch on APRS messaging because that's a whole nother part of this. I'm not going to do any HF. I can't help you with Mac or Linux-based APRS software. Can't tell you about how APRS works, what the packets look like, how to program your radio. That's a whole nother problem. This is the guy that invented APRS in the late 80s, WB4APR. He created something pretty cool. It's used all over the world. Thanks, Bob. What frequencies? In North America, pretty much the main one is 144.39 simplex VHF FM. There's also some 440 around us, and even some 9600 baud, where normally it's 1200 baud packet. But there's 9600 baud around too, and it's quick. And the network carries GPS position reports, weather data, and short text messages. There are gateways put up by hams that connect a radio to a computer to the internet to pick up APRS broadcasts, put them out on the internet onto a server system, and also rebroadcast packets from the internet out on RF. So it's almost sort of a computer-backed repeater. Any ham license can transmit because we're just doing technician-level frequencies. It is possible to do APRS on HF, robust packet. There's a good website, nwaprs.info. Has a lot of details about how recommended settings should be used, how things work around here. Here's a map of the world showing in general what VHF frequencies are used in different parts of the world. I went all the way up into BC one time, and my 144.39 just worked fine. I was still showing up. So why does an APRS beacon not require a control operator? Everything else we do, somebody's got to be in charge of the transmitter. Beacons are exempted in the FCC rules, which means you could stick it on a balloon or a rocket or a airplane, somebody else's airplane, a child, a dog. You can use the same call sign over and over by adding suffixes to the end of the call sign. So if you look at my track, you'll see 15 is my Android phone, which is actually beaconing right now. -7 is my Land Cruiser, that's at the garage. 13 is the car I drove, my Audi. So you can have a whole bunch of different gadgets all tied to your call sign. I got a mobile in the Land Cruiser that'll also do APRS in case the main beacon fails. Vehicles, bicycles, pedestrian, aircraft, drones, mobile command posts, balloons, boats, ships, fixed posts, satellites, children, pets. Okay. I'm sorry, was there a question?
Yeah, Roland.
Go ahead, Roland.
When I thought it was interesting, I don't know much about this, and that's why I'm listening. When we were doing the tunnel marathon this summer, the gentleman that was down doing net control, when I got back down there, was showing me how the bikes were all checking in with it. He could see exactly where those people were because of APRS, and I thought that was pretty cool.
That is very cool. So what does an APRS beacon have to do? Well, it's got to be able to pick up GPS data, which is broadcast once every second from at least 3 satellites. And while it's watching those packets come in, it's calculating speed, bearing, altitude, and your lat long. It adds a call sign, a message, and you can even have a status text transmit along with it. And then it ships it all out in a packet. And the only reason it works is because hams have put up gateway stations. And we got a lot of good hams around here that have done that. In a little bit, I'll show you all the different gateways that heard me on my drive here with my little 10-watt beacon on the trunk of my car. They're the reason that APRS works. If no one's picking me up, it's not a satellite system. It's just VHF ham simplex. You gotta have listening stations. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, like you can go to APRS stations talking to each other without a gate in the middle. It's just the gate makes it infinitely more useful.
Yeah. Depending on the settings that you have on your beacon, there's like a countdown that you attach to your broadcast. And a gateway will pick that up and decrement it by 1 and then rebroadcast it. So you can control how many times it's going to get rebroadcast. And they talk about that on that nwaprs.info, where you see things like wide 1,2 and whatever the heck that means. You're telling the system, don't over broadcast me. I'm just driving around this area.
Right. Cool.
I found this very nice graphic today from somebody else's slide deck. It's kind of a nice capsule explanation of how it works. We got GPS satellites on the left. That data is stuffed through a TNC and goes out on radio. There are actually amateur satellites that will pick up APRS info. So you can be in the boonies and not only get your position out, but you could send and receive text messages via satellite with VHF radio and a pointy antenna. A lot of modern mobiles and HTs now. Yes, sir.
Who has the access to that mapping?
I'm sorry?
Who has the access to that mapping on the right side of your diagram?
The mapping tool.
Yes, who has the access to my coordinates?
I'm sorry. I don't understand you.
Who has access to the coordinates?
Who has access?
Yes.
It's public information.
Oh, yes, just on the internet.
Yeah, there's a number of internet sites that track this data in real time. The most popular is APRS.fi. A guy from Helsinki created something amazing, and Google lets him use their mapping engine for free. And a few years ago, I went to a conference down at SeaTac Airport, big ham conference. And this guy stood up at the podium, and we're all looking at our program, trying to figure out who's going to talk next. And he introduced himself. Nobody knew who the heck he was. We didn't recognize his name. He said, I built APRS.FI. The room went nuts because we didn't know who he was, but we knew what he made. Mm-hmm. It's a really nice gadget. It not only tracks hams, it tracks commercial ships. You can watch the sheriff's boats driving around on the lake. Gobs of telemetry information. Just, you could spend weeks just playing on that website. I've got an Anytone HT, and it will beacon on 144.39 and still listen to 2 other frequencies. It bips over, transmits, and comes back. I'm like, wow. But mine keeps forgetting to do it. I turn it on, and it stops after a while.
When you program that radio in each channel you set up in the CPS, you tell it whether or not you want it to do APRS while you're on that channel. Otherwise, you can manually switch it with the key.
Mine switches automatically.
It'll turn off though if you don't have a program to stay on.
Oh,
It's in the CPS. It's a column.
believe me, I'm
right there.
still learning.
Did they finally get it working on analog?
I've got the 575. I don't know. I've got an Alinco, so I don't know that.
Okay.
I do have DMR as well. It does go out over DMR.
Yeah, I haven't played with the digital APR.
It's a little bit weird, but it's okay.
Great for tracking balloons. Kids get their ham license so they could put a little tiny styrofoam transmitter box on a balloon. They did this out at Valley Camp a couple summers ago. They were showing it.
Works until they get shut down.
Here's a track from back in 2013 of a couple different balloons, 10,000 feet, trucking along. Pretty cool. So my main APRS experience is basically driving around and beaconing my location. I have friends, if they don't see me for a couple of days, they check on me because I'm usually all over the place. Once in a while, I'll fire up a computer and look around. If I'm working an event, obviously, net control, then I'm going to be watching a whole group of people. But I'm always intrigued as to where I get heard. Some of the back roads out this way, surprisingly, still getting picked up. Haven't done enough of the messaging, but I play with it sometimes. And again, and I've actually worked events where the operator said no about APRS. And it's like, why would you run an event without using this? I told Net Control at one event about it. I didn't hear from them for a while, and I called them back about 20 minutes later. You guys okay? And they said, yeah, we're geeking out on that website you gave us. So how is my transmission received? As I mentioned before, hams. Hams are dedicating equipment to be 24/7 gateways. They pass data to and from a server system on the internet. They also rebroadcast packets. So even though if it's going into the internet, it's also being rebroadcast on RF. So if you reach them, you're getting digipeated farther. All works because hams make it work. I thought this was pretty cool. Somebody made a Pi gate with what looks like a little SDR. And that's a very tiny little gateway. Here's my Land Cruiser on the right, N6NBN-7, and I was someplace in Seattle. And I got heard over on, I think that's Vashon Island, by W7HR-1. Any track you're following on APRS.FI, you can hover your mouse over one of the breadcrumbs, a little red dot. That's an instance that it picked you up. And it'll draw a line to what station heard you. Yes, sir.
I've been heard by that station from here.
Yeah, I believe it.
And I think
Maybe he's
there's
up
one
on a hill or something.
Yeah, I think there's one on Gig Harbor too.
And I figured out how to ask the APRS.FI website, just show me some of the gateways that are hearing me. You see on the right there's Valley Camp. But there's good gateways all around us. Some of them are way up on mountains. This one I like. This is me in downtown Bellevue a few days ago. Well, actually, it was in June. But I got heard on the Issaquah Highlands. Oh, what I found intriguing was the box. There's apparently a relay station in downtown Bellevue that picked me up downtown and then bounced my signal to Issaquah. Well, 360, but that's where it got heard. Oops, let's go back one. I didn't know that there was a downtown Bellevue fill-in transmit iGate, but somebody in a mountain, it's probably the Bellevue Communications guys. I thought I'd wander out your direction on the map and see what gateways you had. There's Valley Camp in the bottom right. Somebody on Issaquah Highlands, N1SU-4. There's a guy in Issaquah that I think has got one, Whiskey Tango Zero Foxtrot, which is the best call sign you could ever want. I love that call sign. Here's Olympia, because I gave this talk a couple years ago to some hams in Olympia, and they don't have as many gateways, but they have a few, and this is old data now. Why bother tracking vehicles or personnel with telemetry? Cuts down voice traffic. Keep the channel open for emergency stuff. Great for keeping an eye on your rovers. A call comes in, you can see who's closest. Just go pick up the broken bicycle or the wounded runner. Bike events, parades, walkathons. I worked some parades with Seattle where we put I was one of the people that was either at the head of the parade, middle of the parade, or at the end of the parade on foot with a beacon in my backpack. So the Emergency Operations Center could see basically where the whole march was in real time. They thought that was pretty cool. We do this with boat events when we work Fat Salmon out on Lake Washington. Put hams in boats to back up the lifeguards that are keeping the swimmers from drowning. And of course, any kind of emergency deployment, you want to see where your people are. Net control can see us, very useful. Just like the police and the fire vehicles have, we can do our own telemetry. Chili Hilly over on Bainbridge Island, the battalion chief wandered into net control a few years back and was blown away. He had no idea that hams could do this. And the Bainbridge guys I have a picture of their setup. They are serious. Giant monitors mounted portrait style with custom software. I got some Microsoft guys. One of the things you could also display on a map, depending on your software, is a tactical call sign, your status, out of service, bio stop, whatever. SAG 7. This is the Seattle EOC. Some hard-working people there. This was during one of the parades, I think. This is Bainbridge Island. All the blue tracks was me that day. I got some mileage in and relearned my way. Notice it says SUP-3 toward the bottom right. I think I had programmed, or somebody had programmed their radio to give a tactical call. As long as your ham call sign is being broadcast too, you're fine. Here's one of my typical, probably a day or two in Seattle. This might have been, Flying Wheels. This was actually an event, 2013. Okay. And you can see, I think the green tracks, this is one of my devices tracking around the Seattle area, another event probably. This is the Chili Hilly setup. They got somebody's den or man cave or something and set up a very nice net control. And in case it all quit, in the middle of the table, they've got a giant map of Bainbridge Island, and they got little wooden blocks that they're moving around, like in wartime. So they had a backup system in place. Good engineering. Here's a bicycle event, Chili Hilly 2022. Obviously, I started out over here, and then I tracked across on the ferry and drove around Bainbridge Island for a bunch of hours. And here's a close-up of the Bainbridge Island driving, basically helping the bikes wherever. Usually we drive opposed to their direction so people can flag us down and we don't push them into the gutters. This is me yesterday. Notice the little red dots on the blue lines. Each one of those is a moment that the system picked me up. I was broadcasting every couple of minutes probably. So that red dot was one packet that the system picked up, and you can mouse on that and find out everything about me at that moment. Altitude, bearing, speed. If I were telemetering temperature, that information would be included as well. I don't know why I would. I'm not a weather station. There's a close-up of the information that you get when you mouse one of the dots. I was at 310 degree bearing, 489 feet in altitude. And the MT-RTG is another Bionics unit. It's a little bitty guy, smaller than about the size of a pack of cigarettes. And I was poking around on the APRS.FI website to see where I was actually heard on RF. And it lists this stuff going back a year for everybody they hear. You can even download it if you want to play with it in a spreadsheet or something. You can also decide what your icon's going to look like. There's a code you put into your beacon, 2-character code that picks an icon from a table of available icons. So you can appear at anything you want to be on the map. This is the gadget I've got in the back window of my Land Cruiser. This is probably the first thing I bought that did APRS. You can either put 8 AA's in it and throw it in a backpack, or you can run 12 volts to it, which I did in my car, put an external antenna on the roof, hung it in the back window so it can see the sky, and it comes on when the engine's running. I found a cigarette lighter in the back of the truck that's tied to the ignition. Perfect. That's what the inside looks like. That's a good picture of it there. About this big. This is the one I've got in the the Audi that I drove tonight. This is a little bitty guy, external GPS, external antenna, cigarette lighter jack. Same things, plugged in a cigarette lighter, through the GPS in the back window, antennas on the trunk. So if you look for N6MBN-13 on the map, you'll see me in Carnation. How do you see other stations, though? How do you find out what's going on around you? There's a number of browser-based, including APRS.FI, findyou.com, APRS-map.info, and you can install some software on your computer that will either pull data off the internet if you have internet, or you hook your computer to a TNC and a 2-meter radio and take it off the air. You'll at least hear the stations near you or the ones being rebroadcast. On smartphones and tablets, there's Apple and Android versions. I use APRS Droid on my phone. The APRS.FI guy has a iOS app. Now, obviously, that's using cellular, but you can also connect your device by Bluetooth to something like that mobile link and a radio, and you could go off grid. So here's what if you were just using a mobile, got an extra VHF mobile laying around. I got TNCs I never use anymore. I can use them for this. Another one with a signal link. I found this recently, software I didn't know about, Pinpoint. Same thing, you run it on your computer and you can either listen to the radio or have it pull data off the internet. This is what Pinpoint looks like. I liked its display. It puts up nice little pills with information about stations. APRS.F website I mentioned and love. It's free to use. You can set up an account with your preferences. So when you log in, it shows just what you like to show. Colors, choices. You can filter out stations you don't want to see. Doesn't need internet though. That's an internet-based program. Works on your phone too. So that's my Land Cruiser someplace in Bellevue. 279 feet. Android devices, APRS droids, $5. APRSdroid.org. That's what it looks like on my phone. My phone is N6MEN-15. And while you're beaconing, it will also pick up stations around you, and it'll do messaging. There's the mobile link, the little black guy stuck to the back of the HT. It's not very big. Works with any old Android phone. Put APRS Droid on it, and it'll talk to it by Bluetooth. And you get a little cable that connects to your leftover HT, and you're set. I saw this nice belt pack with voice and APRS capability all in one. On Apple, there's an open APRS on iTunes, Pocket Packet, APRS.FI. This is what the APRS.FI app looks like. You can also do two-way text messaging, depending on your radio. Some radios will display an incoming text, and with a little work, you can create an outgoing message. But you can also go from the APRS system to an email address or a cell phone number, and they can respond, which is really cool. You might not be able to reach a cell tower, so you're in a canyon on a hike, but the APRS satellite's going over. So you can actually send a text message that gets picked up and relayed to a loved one by email, let them know you're okay. No cost. A lot of weather stations, you'll see WXs all over the map on APRS.FI. A lot of people hook their weather stations to their APRS beacon, so you got amateur weather information. One of my favorite hacks is if you put the word wind link in the status text of whatever you're beaconing with. If there's a WindLink message waiting for you on the WindLink system, the APRS system will send you a message and tell you how many messages you have waiting in WindLink. I love that. And it doesn't matter if you use suffix numbers on your WindLink addresses, I found out. I'm beaconing as N6MEN-7. My normal WindLink address is N6NBN. It picked up the fact that I had mail waiting. Pretty sharp. So you could conceivably have an off-grid pager. Treat your HT as an APRS pager. Interesting idea. Here's what messaging might look like on some of the HTs that can do this. This is the most interesting application for APRS messaging that I've ever seen. About 10 years ago, some hams set up a mile-long relay system using APRS on VHF and UHF inside a cave system. Now, obviously, they couldn't get GPS data, but they could relay messages to and from the outside world. Pretty important if you were doing search and rescue. They tested it as basically a proof of concept through this tunnel system. They built a bunch of weatherproof boxes with radios and batteries in them and set them to digipede. And you can just Google APRS cave and you'll find that. Fascinating project. Here's some more places to find more information. APRS.org, APRS.fi. The server system is APRS-IS.net. You learn about the servers worldwide that are passing all these messages around. Findyou.com, OpenAPRS.net. You can look on the ARRL website, Bionics. Again, you guys get a copy of the deck, so you get all these. APRSdroid.org, NWAPRS.info, mobilelinked.com, and good old Wikipedia has a nice article on APRS. That's me. You can see what I'm up to pretty easily. Thank you for your attention. Questions, ideas, thoughts?
What satellites they are using? Satellites. Which satellites? Which frequencies?
Packet length.
The amateur satellites?
No, which packet? What's a packet length? What's packet size?
I have no idea.
It's not large.
That was one of the things I said I didn't have any information on. I don't know how it works. I just set my radio to that frequency and it works. But there's documentation out there.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of, do you have any personal concerns? Have you heard of any abuse of regularly sharing your live location and patterns?
I have not, but somebody would have to know, number one, that this exists. A non-ham, even a lot of hams don't even know this exists. And number two, they'd have to know your call sign.
True.
Because it's all being tracked by my call sign.
But I guess to me, that's not hard to find if you go look up.
No, it's not hard to find. If somebody knew you were a ham and suspected that you might do this, you can always turn them off.
True.
I leave mine running all the time, but I have talked to people that felt that they'll only turn it on during an actual event or whatever. That's fine.
Yeah.
But knowing that you have the capability and you can use it whenever you want or not.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience with the emergency aspect of APRS? You know, I forgot how many years back there was an actual emergency message that came on and paralyzed the whole system because nobody knew what to do. Do you have any experience with that?
I remember hearing a little bit about that, but I have no experience with that situation at all. Yeah, somebody apparently put the word emergency or something like that in an APRS message, and it circulated rapidly all over the place. We could probably find something on Google about it, but I have no knowledge of that.
If memory serves me correctly, it's an actual setting that you can set on your radio. So if you were, crashed down a bank or something like that, and you went to emergency, it would do that, and it literally lights up the APRS system. And I wish I could be more specific about when that happened, but there was a very interesting follow-up article to that years back about what we should do as hams if it ever was to happen again. So that's probably a good place, is just Google it and see what we can find. Thanks.
If I was laying under a boulder at the bottom of a canyon, most likely my HT isn't going to reach anything. A spot satellite device would make a whole lot more sense. They're extremely available now. They've got some that have Bluetooth capabilities, so you can use your smartphone and basically text through the satellite to your partner or whatever. There's a lot of things that ham radio cannot do. I like to learn how to use the APRS ham satellites. I have never done that, and I'm intrigued. But they're not sitting still; they're flying by. So figuring out when to transmit to me would be a problem. But they're there. Hams fund these things and put them up.
The way I treat when it comes to backcountry emergency stuff, the way I treat ham radio is it's another tool in the toolbox, but my first option is an inReach.
Is what?
Is a Garmin inReach, which is similar
Absolutely.
to Spot, but like it's another tool in the toolbox. If that fails for some reason, then hey, cool, I know how to use radio. Maybe I can make that work. But in the backcountry, I ain't counting on it as much.
I can't believe people go out by themselves with no device at all.
Yeah.
There was a woman just a few years ago on Mount Si, I think it was, experienced hiker, all by herself, no communication equipment, so maybe a cell phone, which was worthless.
Yeah, backcountry.
So it breaks my heart when people are that dumb. The devices are not expensive. What is your life worth? You can even rent them.
They're about $250 for the inReach, about $12.
Yeah, and you can even buy one and turn the service on and off as you need it. You don't have to pay the subscription all the time.
That's the basic. You get some basic messaging with it, which you just check in, whatever else. And if
Yeah,
need
you set it to who's going to get the message.
Pop a little opening on the side, hit the button, hold SOS, and then you can text. Nice thing about that over the Spot is that you can use it with your
Spot now has ones that you can message with, but the original Spot.
Yeah, the original Spot. Then they started charging you a ton of money for the subscription on that too. So that's why I ditched my Spot. Anybody want to buy a Spot? I got one.
That's it. Thanks very much. Appreciate it, guys.